I haven't done it. But that's okay. Alright. So, you can, now that you know trig, you can do these 45, 45, 90, and 30, 60, 90 triangles two ways. Okay? First, I'll show you the normal way that we learn. But what I'm gathering, as I've been tutoring and just talking to other students, is y'all hate that way. So, and a lot of y'all prefer the trig way, or prefer trig. So once I show you how to do it the normal way, I'll show you how to do it with trig, and for some people, they definitely prefer trig. Right? Like, yeah. Alright. So, remember with the 45, 45, 90 triangle, your legs are congruent. Okay? So, which one, X or Y, is also going to be 5? Y. That's the other leg. Okay? So, remember that your legs are S, and your hypotenuse is S squared root of 2. Well, if S is 5, then that's just 5 squared root of 2. Okay? I'm going to tell you that trig is the longer way, but for some of us, we're just really getting confused with these pictures. Okay? So let me show you how to do it using trig. Okay? So those are your answers. 5, 5, and 5 squared root of 2. Okay? But let me erase. That way I can show you the trig way. Okay? So, and this is also just good trig practice. Alright, remember with trig, you want to relate everything back to the angle you're given. Okay? So, let's just fill in the whole triangle. Okay? How does 5 relate to 45? Is it opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Opposite. Okay, and let's not fill in the whole triangle yet. Which one do you want to find first, X or Y? X. Let's find X first. Okay? So 5 is opposite. How does X relate to 45? Is it adjacent or hypotenuse? Hypotenuse. Which trig ratio am I going to use? Sine. Okay? Remember your SOHCAHTOA. Okay? So sine is your SO. And what I realized yesterday when I was tutoring is some of us are still a little confused by this, what SOHCAHTOA means. Okay? This is saying sine is opposite over adjacent. So that's how you set up your ratio. Okay? Sine, so it's always sine, cosine, tangent, whatever, of your angle. And we'll put it over 1. That equals opposite over adjacent. So which one did I mark as opposite? Which one did I mark as opposite? 5. And my hypotenuse, X, is what I'm looking for. Okay, so that's how you set it up. From there you do the cross multiplication solve. Okay? So you have X times the sine of 45, because this is getting multiplied, and on the other side of the equal sign, 1 times 5, which is 5. And the last thing, how do you get X by itself? Divide by sine of 45. Good. And go ahead and do that in your calculator for me. 5 divided by sine of 45. Tell me what you get. Five square root of 2. Isn't that what we got for our hypotenuse? 5 square root of 2? Voila. Okay. Now I can do trig again to figure out y. Okay? And the big thing about when you're doing trig to solve these is you only want to use pieces that you were given. Okay? So say 5 square root of 2 was wrong for my hypotenuse. Say 5 square root of 2 was wrong, and we calculated something wrong. You don't want to use that value, because if that's wrong, then y is going to be wrong. So only use what you were given. Okay? So we're still going to work with 5 and the 45 degrees and y. Okay? So don't use whatever you found, because if it's wrong, then obviously whatever you're finding next is wrong. Does that make sense? Okay. Alright. Now to find y, how does y relate to 45? It's adjacent. Okay? Obviously, if I've already got opposite and hypotenuse, the only one that can be left is adjacent. Okay? I can't have hypotenuse again, or opposite again. Okay? So using what I was given, so don't use h, because say 5 square root of 2 is wrong, then y would be wrong. Have opposite and adjacent, which one am I using? Sine, cosine, or tangent with opposite and adjacent. Tangent. Okay, TOA. Okay, what this is saying is tangent equals opposite over adjacent. Milo.
So why are you thinking
Because I found that, but what I'm saying is say my answer's wrong.
Oh.
If my answer's wrong and I use it, then that's going to be wrong. So only use what you're given in the picture. Okay? Alright, so I can use tangent, TOA. Okay, so tangent of my angle over 1. This is saying that tangent is opposite over adjacent. So which one did I mark as opposite? 5. And my adjacent was my y. Okay, same thing here, cross multiply. You get y tangent of 45 equals 5. And then we can divide both sides by tangent of 45. What does y equal? 5. Okay? So you can use trig, and I got the same answers as I did using it the other way. Okay? To me, the other way is a little quicker, but I'm seeing as y'all have been working that a lot of y'all are more comfortable with trig. Okay? So do whatever method works for you. I will say, if you know how to label your 45, 45, 90, and your 30, 60, 90, you can check your trig answers and compare those with your special right triangle answers. That way you know they match. Okay? So that's a way you can check yourself, essentially. Okay? Are there any questions on what I just did? Okay? I want you, we normally don't do this with bell ringer, but I want you to practice. Okay? I want you to do that same thing, do trig twice, to figure out x and y here. Okay? I want you to try it with trig. Okay? And then you can decide which method you prefer. Okay? Just take just a couple minutes, because I want y'all to get some extra practice. Do it with trig and see what you get. Do not do Yes, I'll drive you one. There's supposedly a mode that changes that, but I haven't quite figured it out. So it's just easier to use these. Okay, so go ahead and try it with trig for the other one. So you're going to have to do trig twice. Okay, before you get too far, how does 2 relate to 60? Opposite. How does x relate to 60? Times. Okay, and then obviously y is going to be your adjacent. Okay. Yeah, put it in radical form. Yeah. So if it gets it to use a decimal, click the arrows right above there. It'll give it to you radical form. Those two buttons, or those arrows are like that. Okay, so you'll need to retype what you have to get 2.3, and then convert that to radical. Okay, we'll go ahead and hit enter. Oh, there we go. Okay, if for some reason it didn't, you would hit those arrows, like that converts to decimal, hit those again. Yep. Yep, yep, that's it. Uh-huh, yep. Alright, so I'm going to find x first, okay? If you decide to find y first, that's okay, but it still should have been essentially the same method. So I have opposite and hypotenuse, so which one do I need to use? Sine, okay? So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. That's what your so and SOHCAHTOA is, okay? So sine of my angle over 1 equals opposite. Which one did I mark as opposite? 2, so 2 over x. So x sine of 60 equals 2. And then when you divide both sides by sine of 60, not 60, there we go. You get that x is 4 square root of 3 over 3. Okay, if you get a decimal, you can hit those arrows right above enter and convert it back. Okay? Yeah, Miley.
So, I can multiply. So,
You need x alone. Okay? This operation's right here is multiplication. So if I want x all by itself, I have to divide to get x by itself. I mean, you have to cross multiply to get here, but to get x alone, you got to divide. Because this is, think about it, it's x times some number. So to get x by itself, I need to do the opposite, which is divide. Okay? Sine of 60 is some number. Okay? So if you want to treat it like, for example, x times 2, how do I get x by itself? I gotta divide by 2. Okay? Sine of 60 is a number. Okay? I treat it as such. Alright? Now to figure out y, how does y relate to 60? It's adjacent. Okay? You don't want to use your hypotenuse here because say 4 squared root of 3 over 3 is wrong. Then y is going to be wrong. So you want to go back to that 2. Okay? I have opposite over adjacent. That's tangent. So tangent of 60 over 1 equals 2 over x. Opposite over adjacent. So you get x tan of 60 equals 2, or I'm sorry, y, not x, y. And then when you divide both sides by tan of 60, you get that y is 2 square root of 3 over 3. Okay? And then if I know my special right triangle picture, I can check that. I'm across from the 60-degree angle. So is this s or s squared root of 3? S squared root of 3. Okay, so let me scroll down. So going back the old-fashioned way, s square root of 3 is 2. To figure out what s is, divide both sides by square root of 3. So s, when I do that, 2 divided by square root of 3, I get what I just found for y, 2 square root of 3 over 3. And then my hypotenuse is 2s, so to get 2s, multiply that by 2, I get 4 square root of 3 over 3. So if you know your picture, and you decide to do it the trig way, you can still check yourself. Or vice versa, if you prefer doing it the old-fashioned way, you can check yourself using trig. Okay? So I hope that, now that I've shown you that, brings a little more clarity, and that you can use trig instead of the other way if that's what you prefer. You just have to do trig twice. And you just need to be sure that you don't use things that you found in case they're wrong. Okay? I know that was a long bell ringer, but are there any questions on that? Hopefully that provided a little more clarity. Alright, be sure you've got all 3 bell ringers. If you don't, talk to a neighbor. Submit them on Schoology if you can, please, but if you cannot, you can drop them up here. Okay? And then after that, obviously take out your notes for today. This should be a very short lesson. So either submit them or drop them in the bin over there. Yes.
Extra credit technical.
Yeah, do you know what you prefer? And Milo, while y'all are doing that, let me print down a bit. Anyone else want a project while I'm printing? Be sure your name's also on your bell ringers too, please. Double check that, because I don't want to hunt you down. Just remember before you leave and I'll get it. Okay. Alright, let's start our final lesson. Okay, so this is called inverse trig. Okay, so notice that with all the trig problems so far, we've had an angle, we're looking for a side. Okay, now we have the sides, I need to figure out what the angle is. Okay, so that is doing the inverse. Good Lord. I'm not even going to try because I know it's not going to be doing anything. Yeah, it should be week 10. Okay, anyway. So yeah, like I was saying, hopefully this will load in a second, but now we're looking for the angle when we're given the sides. Okay, so you're still using your normal trig, you're just pressing a different button on the calculator. And in return, we're finding an angle instead of the side. Okay, so if the side of my angle is x, then to solve for my angle, which is A, I'm going to take the inverse sine of x. Okay, that's what sine to the -1 is. That's called your inverse sine. So if my angle is what I'm looking for, I'm going to take the inverse sine of x. So for example, my angle here is 30 degrees. But how would I get 30 degrees? I would take the inverse sine of 1/2. And I'll show you how to do that in the calculator in a minute. So the inverse sine of 1/2 would give me 30 degrees. Yeah, I know. But you need this. Sorry. Alright. Now for cosine, okay. So to figure out what the angle is, you'll take the inverse sine of the side. So say I have this triangle, and this must mean that say this is what I'm looking for. So say that opposite is 1 and hypotenuse is 2. I would take the inverse sine of opposite over hypotenuse, and that would give me that angle is 30 degrees. Okay? Alright, cosine, essentially the same thing. So to figure out what the inverse of cosine is, if I want to figure out what A is, I would take the inverse cosine of x. So for example, if I take the inverse cosine of 53 over 56, I'm going to get that angle associated with those sides of a triangle is 19 degrees. Alright, and then for tangent, once again, same old, if I want A, I'm going to take the inverse tangent of x. So please don't say to me tan to the -1 or cos to the -1, okay? It's your inverse. Okay, I still have some people say, like when I ask you SOHCAHTOA, you're saying, cos or so, sine, cosine, and tangent, okay? Well, we're getting there, And you've still got time to practice before your test on Wednesday, okay? Alright. Alright, so to figure out this angle, 65, I would take the inverse tangent of 26 over 12. And when I do that in my calculator, I would get that the angle is 65 degrees. Now let's actually practice with this. So I'm given this triangle, and I want to find the measure of angle A. Okay, so this angle right here is what I'm looking at. All right, I'm going to just redraw the triangle real quick because we're using the same triangle for both problems. So this is That's not a 2. So that's A, that's C, that's B. Okay, so what I need to do is, just like normal trig, I need to ask myself how those two sides relate to angle A. Okay, so 1, is it opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Adjacent, good. Okay, next to. And remember, adjacent can only be a leg. Okay, so what does that make 4 then? Hypotenuse. Okay, so Katoa, which one has hypotenuse and adjacent? Cosine. Good. Okay. So remember, we'll just call it A. Okay, so the cosine of A is adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, but if I want to figure out what, A probably wasn't a good one to use. Let's call it X. You can call it whatever you want if it doesn't bother me, but I've got 2 A's. I know that's going to throw someone off. So that missing angle I want is X. Okay? So if I want X, I need to take the inverse cosine of my adjacent over my hypotenuse. So I'm trying to figure out the angle. Okay, so now let's plug everything in. X is what I'm looking for, and I'm taking the inverse cosine of my adjacent over my hypotenuse. That's what this is saying. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Alright? So, what is my adjacent? 1. And my hypotenuse? 4. Okay? Now you need your calculator. Okay? Instead of hitting cosine, you're going to hit second cosine. So you're going to hit that green button, and then cosine. And then 1 divided by 4. And, what did it ask? Let's round to the nearest degree. So I want to hold it. The nearest degree. 76 degrees. Perfect. So X is 76 degrees. You should have gotten 75.5. I'll round up to 76. For anyone that did not get 76. Yeah. So instead of hitting second, so then do 1 divided. Anyone else having issues? Alright, you can do this on a normal calculator. You can do it on the calculator on your phone too, but just get comfortable with these as well, just in case you use them for your special rates. Okay? Alright, and then for 2, so going back to this triangle, now I'm looking at angle B. So, just like before, ask yourself how 1 and 4 relate to angle B. Okay? So 1, opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Opposite, what is 4? Hypotenuse. I have opposite and hypotenuse. Which trig ratio am I using? Sine. Good. So, of your SOHCAHTOA. So sine of, we'll call it y. Sine of y is opposite over hypotenuse. You don't have to write this if you don't need it. I'm just writing it. Okay, so my angle is going to be the inverse sine of opposite over hypotenuse. So that is inverse sine of 1 over 4. And once again, round that to the nearest degree, so you'll hit second, then sine. And what do you get? 14 degrees, perfect. You get 14.4. That 7 is going to round it to, no, that's not. 14.4, and that stays. So nothing can change that. So that stays at 14 degrees. Good. practice for these next ones, you're just practicing punching it in the calculator, okay? So round for all of those, round to the nearest degree. So you're just practicing punching it in. So you've got 30 more seconds. Alright, y'all go ahead and take 30 seconds. Just compare your answers. Make sure you round it properly. Yes. Alright, what did we get for number 1? 53 degrees. Alright, 2, 74 degrees, good, that's 73.6, that rounds up to 74. Okay, 3, 79, good. And number 4, 12 degrees, perfect. 11.5, that'll round up to 12, perfect. Alright, yes.
Divided by 5.
Yes. Either or works. Either or. Yeah, if you click the fraction button or if you simply say 1 divided by 5, either one will be okay. Alright. I've got 4 problems for us to practice. I can do more if we need, but hopefully we won't need it. But if you do, speak up. And then after that, you can finish your review. You do have Delta Math homework, but I don't think it'll take you too long. And then you've got other Delta Math to finish, or you have your bonus project, okay? But let's get through these 4 problems first. Alright, so we're going to find a missing angle, and we're going to round to the nearest tenth of a degree. Okay, so tenth of a degree, how many decimal places? 1, good. Okay, 1 degree, or 1 decimal place. Alright, so I need to ask myself, how 4.4 and 8 relate to x. Okay, x is down here. Alright, so 8. Opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? Hypotenuse, it's across from the right angle. Remember, there can't be 2 adjacent, so if you see 2 adjacent, one of them's got to be a hypotenuse. And then what's 4.4? Adjacent. So I have A and H, sine, cosine, or tangent. Cosine, good. Okay, so x is the inverse cosine of adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, like I said, you don't have to write that if you don't need it. Okay, so inverse cosine of, how am I going to set up my ratio? 4.4 over 8, good. And rounding to the nearest tenth, what you get? Say that again, Nate. 56.6 degrees, good. Make sure you get that. If you do not get that, let me know, that way I can check your calculator. 56.6. Alright, number 2. How does 34 relate to x? Adjacent, it's next to, but it's not a hypotenuse. And 40, opposite. Okay, remember, opposite means across from, so it's not going to be next to it. Okay, opposite and adjacent, sine, cosine, or tangent. Tangent, good. So inverse tangent of my opposite over adjacent. How do I set up my ratio? 4. Good. 40 over 34. And when you punch that in your calculator, you get 49.6 degrees. Good. Okay. Feel like you can do these last 2 on your own. Flip to the back. You got 2 more. Give them a shot. If you have questions, though, let me know. Okay, once you've got both of them, check your answers to the neighbor. Be sure you have the degree symbol. This is a degree. This is an angle measurement. Alright, give me 30 more seconds. Alright, what did we get for 3? Say it louder. 16.8. Okay, which trig ratio did you use? Sine, good. Okay, this is opposite. 4.8 is opposite. And 5.5 is a hypotenuse. So inverse sine of 4.8 over 5.5, you get 60.8, perfect. And what do we get for 4? 26.6. Okay, which trig ratio do you use here? Tangent. The 4.6 is opposite, the 9.2 is adjacent. Inverse tangent of, let's see, 4.6 over 9.2. Does in fact get you that 26.6. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is true. Questions, comments, concerns? So Monday we'll do a fun trig activity, and also celebrate Friday. And then Tuesday my hope is that you'll finish your review before then and we can play some review game. Maybe like Kahoot or Blue Kid or something different. And then Wednesday we'll test. And then Thursday's your last day to turn in anything for the quarter. Okay? And then your project is due Tuesday. Okay? Alright.